Hey everyone, it's Rachel from Sugar Maple Farmhouse, and today I'm going to show you how I made this moss bunny for some DIY spring decor. So before we get started, there's a couple things I want to tell you. One, the main product of the body for the moss bunny is a styrofoam ball, but it is recycled plastic styrofoam, which I was able to find at my craft store. I don't like buying regular styrofoam, so when I looked at this project and was thinking about how I wanted to do it, I was really happy that I could find a recycled styrofoam. I think you should be able to easily do that too, since I just ran to the craft store and found these. Also, speaking of the craft store, I do think you should probably buy the head and the bottom for the bunny at the craft store near you, because then you can see how they go together size wise. So I will have a link in the description below, like I sometimes do when we're doing crafts, with some of the supplies, but they will not include the styrofoam balls because I really do think you need to kind of see how those go together on your own. Also, I worked on the head for this, just the head, off camera, so I could see how it all kind of went together with the different pieces before I started the rest of it. So I've got the whole body on camera for you guys to see how I made it, putting everything together, and the ears too. But you will notice there is a slight difference between how I did the head and how I did the body. And I really loved the way that the body came out a little bit more than the head. So I'm glad that I did that. And I could show you kind of all the tips and tricks I learned working on the head for the body portion of this. With all that said, let's get started and I will show you how I made this moss bunny for some DIY spring decor. So here's the head for my bunny rabbit. I did not record me doing this part because I wanted to just see how it worked. And I actually ended up using kind of a different strategy on the body of the rabbit. So for the head, I kind of wrapped longer strips of this green moss paper around the head, and it just did not work very well. It made the head a little thicker and there were some odd spots. So I don't recommend doing that. What I do recommend doing is what I'm going to do here on the body for the rabbit, and that is cutting pieces into smaller pieces before you add them to the styrofoam ball. The moss that I'm using here is a preserved sheet moss, so it is moss essentially. It's been put on this backing, and you can find this at the craft store. That's where I got mine. I will also leave a link in the description below if you want to buy it online, to where you can get some that is just like this. Before this project, I had never worked with this type of moss before, so this is the first time I used it, and it was fairly simple to work with. I think there are a few things you need to be aware of when putting it on a round object especially. So one, you just have to use a lot of glue. So I went through a lot of glue sticks on this project. Two, obviously it's not going to wrap perfectly, and in some places it's not going to stick perfectly. So you really do have to go in and kind of tidy it up after you have the main sheet done, and go in with the glue gun and some glue and just really hold it in place to stick it back down. Now you can see that I am using rather large sheets to cover this. So when I did the head, I went through and I literally kind of like tried to wrap the ball, and it just didn't work. These larger pieces will work for you. You can see that I'm going in again just with the glue gun and just making sure all the edges are secure. You can cut the pieces smaller and it might be easier for you to work with, but I wanted to see kind of what I could get away with in terms of being able to keep these sheets closer to a larger size and cover more of my ball. Now I will say, for a craft project, I did find this project a little bit more expensive. Usually I try to keep them less expensive, and this one I didn't think originally it was going to be this expensive, but the sheets of moss do cost some money. So I don't know how much I probably spent on this, maybe $50, but I don't know, I kind of think it's worth it because it's a piece I can use year after year, every single spring in Easter. And I think if I would have bought something like this at the store, I probably would have paid easily anywhere from $100 to $150, which means I would have never purchased it. So I think it was worth it. But if you want to make this project and you want to spend a little less money, what I would recommend is making a smaller bunny rabbit. So you can get the styrofoam balls in many, many different sizes. Mine is very large. And if you want to make it, but you want to make it a little less expensive, that's what I would recommend. Just make a smaller bunny for somewhere to put around your house. You could even use a smaller bunny as a centerpiece too, which would look great for spring or Easter. So here I did something different when I put this piece on the ball, which you can kind of see. I cut the corners of the sheet of moss so that it would wrap better around the spot that I needed it to go. I think this would have actually been a great way to start out the project, cutting those corners, because it allowed the moss piece to wrap a little bit better so that it wasn't kind of an odd square flat piece on the round ball. You will obviously have some gaps, so I cut small pieces and I went and I filled those in. You will also have some places where things overlap. If you go in with your glue gun and you really press on those pieces and really glue them nicely, you will not really see them once the bunny is set up and kind of not right in front of your face. If you do have some spots at the end of making this where you do not like how a seam looks or something like that, you have like a teeny tiny little gap and you don't want to have to go in and put another piece of sheet moss on it, I did end up going in and using kind of free dried preserved moss to kind of plug in some spots where things were overlapping. What I will say about that is that it's not going to be the exact same color as the sheet moss, more than likely. So just be aware of that. I think you would have to make a game time call on whether you want to do that and how bad something is bothering you. But I like how it looks in the spots where I ended up putting it. Can you tell a little bit? Like I can tell, but I don't think if somebody were just looking at it and didn't know that they would really be able to tell. Once you have both the head and the body for the bunny covered in the moss, it's time to put everything together. So I went and I found the side that I like the best and I made that the front. You can see here, you can still see some overlap places, which didn't end up bothering me once everything was all together. This part that you can see right here is going to be where the head goes into, and I felt like it was kind of the worst spot for the overlapping. So I put that on top so that I could hide that area with the head. Then I attached the two pieces with skewers. So I had some bamboo skewers for like dinner and shish kebabs that I used to make holes in the head first. And I ended up using kind of three of these. So I went in with one and I tried to attach it with one, which is what you can see I'm doing here. And I felt like it was just too wobbly. And then again, here I am adjusting to see which side I want to be the front of the head. So looking all around it and figuring kind of that out. As you can see here on the head too, like I said, I tried wrapping it a little bit more in longer pieces and that didn't really work. And you can kind of see that area on top of the head. So I put it on top so I wouldn't have to necessarily see that. And then the other side of the head where you can kind of see some of that is on the bottom here where I'm sticking the skewers in. So I used three of the skewers and then I just went in and I pushed them each individually into the body piece. And then pushed it down, and it was much more stable with three than it had been with one. Once the head and the body were assembled, I made the ears, and I just took a piece of cardboard that we had laying around and I sketched them out on the cardboard and then I cut them out. To get the size correct for the ears that I made, I just simply placed them on the sheet of moss and then I cut that out based on their size. The other thing that I did is I went and I cut a line down the center so that I could easily wrap the moss around the ears themselves. Add a lot of glue to the front side of your ear, so that is going to be next to or face down on the moss paper, just to make sure everything holds in place exactly how you want it. Then what I did is I wrapped the moss around the back side of the ears. I didn't cut any off necessarily because I wanted to be able to have enough moss back there holding it that it wrapped around nicely and I didn't have to worry about anything popping off. At this stage, this is also when you're going to add additional bamboo skewers to the ears so that you can attach the ears to the bunny's head. So I actually put these in between my moss and my cardboard and I glued them in. Then I also did decide to fully cover them, so if the back of this were visible at any point, you would not see the cardboard or the bamboo skewers. Once I attached the ears, I went in and I filled in some of those spaces I was talking about with some of the other dried preserved moss. From this angle, you can't see it that well. You can see it a little bit more, I think, from the front, specifically here on the video, but not really in person. I also added a pretty off-center lace ribbon to the neck area to hide kind of any gaps there. And then I went in, like I said, and filled in with that moss kind of around the ears and some of the other spots. Overall, I think Mr. Bunny turned out pretty great, and he is a cute addition to our spring and Easter decor. Thank you guys so much for following along today. I hope that you love learning how to make the DIY Moss Bunny. If you have any questions or comments, please leave those in the comment section below and I'll be sure to get back to you. Also, I will leave a link to the full blog post for the Moss Bunny in the description below. Lastly, if you have not followed along with us here at Sugar Maple Farmhouse, I hope that you will hit that subscribe button and come on over. I craft, I cook, I DIY, I garden. There's a little bit of everything here. And if you like to do a little bit of everything too, I hope that you will join me here. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great day.